Heartwarming. Millionaire's 10 million bet backfires as wife discovers amazing inner strength. Jessica stared at the faded paint peeling from the walls of her charming but modest home, once filled with laughter and dreams, now weighed down by enveloping shadows. She remembered back to a time when her family drew happiness from playing in the backyard or sharing stories around the dinner table. But that warmth was fading under the growing gulf between her and Mark, her ambitious husband. $10 million, he exclaimed, eyes wide with excitement. In his quest for status and success, Mark made a jaw-dropping bet to turn their cozy abode into a mansion, convinced that the ultimate victory lay in flashy cars and grand parties. As he spiraled deeper into this world of wealth, Jessica felt herself becoming a mere specter in her own life. With each passing day, his obsession grew, while their children, Emma and Jake, felt the loss of their father's presence. Everyone seemed to notice, yet Jessica wore her smile like armor, battling feelings of inadequacy. She could see Mark's fading ambition in the way he pushed away their family for networking events and high-stakes poker games, leaving his children in the dark. "I'm doing this for us," he'd shout, but Jessica felt more unloved and unseen with each declaration. Then came the night when the neighbors, sensing the weight on her heart, gathered around her. There was Mrs. Adams with her warm pot of chicken soup, and the Thompsons with their comforting hugs. Their shared laughs and voices filled the air, reminding Jessica that community mattered. The simple kindness of her friends began to heal her wounded spirit. Amid the support, a local initiative aimed at uplifting families arose, and Jessica felt a spark ignite within her. Fueled by the encouragement of her neighbors and boundless hope, she launched programs that brought families together, focused on creative arts, cooking, and wellness workshops. Laughter echoed through the streets once more. Bonds formed in the community started to breathe life back into her existence. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jessica poured all her energy into community outreach, her confidence grew. But it was a bittersweet triumph. Mark's grand gamble unraveled at the seams, dragging them into dire financial peril. The neighbors watched in shock. Whispers of Mark's integrity and values rippled through the streets. The very people he sought approval from now challenged his ambitions, shaking the facade he'd built. With her newfound courage, Jessica began to see that their lives, once driven by his pursuit of status, were now in jeopardy. She became a beacon of hope for her community, embodying resilience while trying to mend her fractured home. In a moment heavy with tension, she stood at a crossroads, heart pounding. The walls of her cherished home whispered warning signals, as the love that had once flourished faded behind material ambition. Would she find a way to connect with Mark again, or was the gap too wide to bridge? The questions hung in the air, leaving Jessica at the precipice of either reclaiming her family, or watching it all slip away. Jessica awoke the next morning to an unsettling silence. The house felt altered, as if it were holding its breath. She turned to the empty side of the bed, where Mark usually lay sprawled out, and the weight of his absence crashed over her like waves against a rocky shore. She had spent countless nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd ever be able to reclaim the love they once shared. Now, the distance seemed insurmountable. Taking a deep breath, she pushed herself out of bed. Daylight spilled through the kitchen window, illuminating the chaos of bowls, cups, and untouched breakfast from the night before. Emma and Jake were still asleep, blissfully unaware of their father's growing troubles, and she wanted to keep it that way. As she prepared breakfast, the familiar rhythm of her routines provided a much-needed anchor. She cracked the eggs into the skillet, the sizzling sounds sparking an unexpected warmth in her heart. Each moment of normalcy was a reminder of her strength and resilience. The aroma of cooking lingered in the air, yet a shadow darted through her mind, a nagging worry about the family's financial state. After breakfast, Jessica decided to visit the community center, feeling determined to channel her emotions into something productive. She wanted to expand the initiatives that had begun to breathe life back into her world. The center buzzed with activity, filled with families laughing and playing together. It felt good to see people coming together, united in purpose and joy. "Jessica! You're back!" greeted a cheerful voice. It was Mrs. Adams, her unwavering supporter. "We've been missing you around here. The art program is going so well. You've really made a difference." Jessica smiled, the warmth of community filling her heart. But as the cheer bubbled within her, a wave of doubt crept back. Was she enough? Could she truly bring the same warmth to her own home? That evening, she found herself standing outside, staring at the gentle flicker of lights from houses around the neighborhood. The world seemed aglow with life while her heart felt heavy with confusion. She thought of Mark, lost in a whirlwind of ambition while they stood on the brink of losing everything. The door creaked open behind her, and she turned to see her son, Jake. "Mom, can we play outside?" he asked, innocence in his eyes. For a moment, she hesitated, wanting to retreat within her thoughts. But she nodded, realizing that these moments were what mattered most. The laughter of children echoed into the night, reminding her of better days. As they tossed the ball back and forth, Jessica caught glimpses of Emma peeking out from the door, too shy to join. That gave her pause. She needed to be strong not just for herself but for her children. They were her priority, not the aspect of a life defined by Mark's ambition. Suddenly, she saw Mark stride down the street, his expression unsettled, every line of his face etched with worry. A knot twisted in her stomach. He was putting on a brave front, but deep down, she could see the cracks in his armor. He paused as their eyes met, surprise mixed with uncertainty. Before she could think, Jessica felt a surge of spirit. "Mark!" she called out. "We need to talk." As he approached, she sensed the tension enveloping them, but she also felt the stirring of hope. This was a chance for change. But would he be willing to listen? What would happen if they faced the truth together? Jessica's heart raced as the next pivotal moment loomed over both of them. Jessica took a breath, the air thick with unspoken words. Mark stood a few feet away, the tension radiating off him like heat from a sun-baked road. His usual confidence seemed to waver, and for once, the strong demeanor he wore felt more like a mask than armor. "Jessica," he said, his voice low. "I didn't think you wanted to see me." The question hung between them, heavy and demanding. She could feel her heart pounding like a drum, raw urgency coursing through her veins. "We need to talk, Mark. About everything. About us." His brow furrowed, and for a moment, it looked like he was going to turn away, to retreat into that safe veneer he always donned. But instead, he walked closer, the space that once felt vast suddenly becoming a bridge of uncertainty. "The kids are inside," he said, glancing towards the door. "Can we just not do this right now?" Jessica shook her head, her resolve hardening. "I can't pretend anymore. We need to face this. I don't want our family to crumble while we act like everything is fine." Mark's shoulders slumped, the fight leaving him. He nodded, as if surrendering to the inevitable. "Okay. What do you want to say?" "I want to understand where we are," she replied, intensity swelling in her chest. "I can't ignore the vibe between us. Every day feels like I'm living with a stranger. I want us back, Mark, but I don't know how to reach you." He stood silent for a moment, battling with himself. Jessica could see the weariness in his eyes, the battle lines of stress, and the weight of choices he had yet to talk about. "We're struggling," he finally admitted, his voice faltering. "With money, with everything. You know that." The pain in his voice cracked like glass, and Jessica felt the tight coil of anxiety loosening. This was the moment they needed. "I know. But this isn't just about money," Jessica insisted, stepping closer. "It's about us. You. Me. The kids. We've been so focused on everything else that we forgot to check in with each other." His expression softened, and for a flicker of a moment, the man she had fallen in love with peeked through. I've been trying so hard to provide, Jess. I thought if I could just get us through this, everything would fix itself. And in the process, you've lost sight of what matters the most, our family," she said, her voice firm but gentle. "We're drowning in silence and expectations. I need you to be here with me." Mark looked down, a tear slipping from the corner of his eye. "I am scared, Jess. What if we can't make it back? What if everything I've fought for just falls apart?" "Then we rebuild it together," she whispered, her heart swelling with that surging hope. "We can start fresh, find our way. Just don't give up on us." As he met her gaze, she saw the flicker of hope igniting in him as well. Their hands brushed, a small spark between them as the darkness slowly began to lift. But before they could fully embrace that new possibility, Emma's voice broke through the moment. "Mom! Dad! Can we have ice cream for dinner?" Jessica laughed softly, breaking the tension. "Sure, kiddo. But only if you promise to share." Mark's lips curled into a reluctant smile, a small but significant victory. They both turned towards the house, the momentary slip of tension replaced by laughter and warmth. As they walked inside, Jessica felt a roller coaster of emotions: hope, fear, urgency. But in that chaos, she clutched onto the realization that space was available for healing, for something new to emerge from the shadows of their past. Would they be willing to navigate the rough waters ahead together, or would they hold on to the weight of unspoken fears? As they stepped into the kitchen, the welcoming aroma of chocolate chip cookies wafted through the air. Emma flitted around like a butterfly, her excitement lighting up the room as she flung herself into the tall chair at the table. Jessica couldn't help but smile at her daughter's infectious joy, but a part of her felt a sting of urgency lingering beneath the surface. "Where's your brother?" Mark asked, scanning the room. "I'll get him," Emma chirped, darting down the hallway. The sudden quiet left between them felt thick again. Jessica glanced at Mark, whose soft gaze lingered on the empty playroom door. "You okay?" she asked, her heart sinking slightly at the thought that this small moment could slip through their hands. He just nodded, but she could sense the weight still pressing on him. "Maybe we could sit down later?" she suggested, hoping to open the door to deeper conversations once the kids were settled. "Sure, after, ice cream," Mark replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Jessica felt that familiar tug of helplessness. She wished she could crack that exterior piece by piece until the real Mark emerged again. Emma scampered back inside, with her little brother tugging at her sleeve, practically bouncing with energy. "Can we make sundaes?" he shouted, barely able to contain himself. "Sounds great," Mark replied, and as he turned to pull out the ice cream from the freezer, Jessica seized the moment to step in closer, her voice lowered. "Hey, can we just promise one thing between us, to be honest? No matter how hard it gets, okay?" Mark shot a quick look at her over his shoulder, eyes searching her face. "Yeah. I can do that." Something flickered in his gaze, like the tiniest glimpse of the man she loved, and it filled her heart with warmth even amidst the uncertainty. The room soon erupted into a flurry of laughter as bowls were filled with scoops of ice cream, chocolate syrup swirled throughout. Emma announced herself as the official sundae maker, piling on sprinkles and whipped cream, determined to create the most extravagant dessert possible. For a moment, Jessica let herself get swept away in the chaos, forgetting the weight of their earlier conversation, if only just for a little while. But once the kids were settled in, the reality began to hang like a curtain around them. Mark and Jessica exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. Once the children finished their treats and retreated to their toys, Mark's voice broke the ambience. "Okay. Now, about us." Jessica took a deep breath, her heart racing again. This was the moment to dig deeper. "I want us to talk about what's really bothering us. Not just the surface stuff, not just the bills or the kids. I need to know what's in that heart of yours." Mark's expression became serious, the laughter replaced by something else entirely. "I don't want to lose you." The sincerity in his voice wrapped around her, pulling her in. "You want tea," she promised. "But it's time to face everything, the fears, doubts. We can do this together." He nodded slowly, the uncertainty still glimmering in his eyes. Jessica reached out, placing her hand over his. It was a simple gesture, but it was a tether, something to hold on to as they approached the unknown. "Can you trust me?" he asked, a hint of vulnerability cracking through the veneer. "I trust you," she whispered back, though her own uncertainty danced behind her smile. Their hands lingered together on the table, both painfully aware that shadows loomed over that trust, and yet, for a moment, it felt as if they were standing on the edge of something significant. As the children giggled and played in the background, the question loomed: were they brave enough to traverse the shadows together, or would their fears swallow them whole? Jessica held her breath, waiting for Mark to say the words she desperately needed to hear. Would he be willing to expose himself fully, or would he retreat back to safety, leaving them on the cusp of something transformative? Mark broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared, Jess." Jessica's heart ached at his admission. It was a crack in the armor he wore so tightly, a moment of raw honesty that hung heavy in the air. She squeezed his hand tighter, anchoring herself in this vulnerable space. "What scares you?" she asked gently, every word laced with care. Mark took a breath, hesitating as he searched for words. "I've been feeling lost. Like everything I'm supposed to be doing just isn't enough. The work, the kids, the bills, it all feels like too much. And I can't help but wonder if I'm failing you." Her chest tightened at the thought of him carrying that weight alone, feeling inadequate. "You're not failing, Mark. We're in this together. And it's okay to feel overwhelmed." A flicker of relief washed over his features, but it was short-lived. "It's not just about the day-to-day stuff, though. It's about us. I worry that we're drifting apart, and I don't know how to stop it." The truth of his words settled in the quiet. Jessica's mind raced back to the distance she felt creeping in over the past months. They were in a routine, trapped in the push and pull of life, and yet they had become more like co-parents than partners. "What if we tried to reconnect? Just the two of us," she suggested, heart racing at the idea. "We could schedule date nights, or even a weekend getaway if we can find someone to watch the kids." Mark's eyes lit up momentarily, hope flickering back to life. "You really think we could make that happen?" "Why not?" she said with the spark of enthusiasm. "We deserve that time together. Just us." He smiled at her then, a real smile, one that showed he was starting to believe. "Okay, let us make it happen." As they spoke, a warmth enveloped their hands on the table, and Jessica leaned closer, driven by the intimacy of the moment. "Let us tackle the little things first. Maybe start a list of what we both want out of this marriage. We can draft it together." Mark nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing just a bit. "I like that. It feels good to think we're moving forward." Just then, Emma burst back into the room, her hair wild from play, her brother in tow. "Mama, we need to build a fort!" she exclaimed, excitement bubbling over. Jessica couldn't help but laugh as she saw the little boy bounce eagerly behind her. "Okay. A fort it is." She dropped her voice lower, assuring Mark with a glance, "We'll come back to this. We have to keep talking." He sighed with acceptance, knowing a new challenge loomed yet hopeful at the same time. "Yeah, we will. I'm in." The children raced towards the living room, their energy infectious. Jessica stood and took Mark's hand, leading him back into cheerful chaos. Laughter filled the air again, childlike joy washing over them, but now it felt as if they shared something sacred underneath it all. As the fort grew, pillows tossed and blankets draped, Jessica felt that same warmth from before wrapping around her. Small moments turned into building blocks, and perhaps, just perhaps, the reconnection they both craved was within reach. Later that evening, as the kids finally settled to sleep, Jessica found herself lost in thought while folding laundry. Mark entered the living room, rubbing his neck, a deep exhale escaping his lips. "Hey," he said softly, sitting down beside her on the couch. "I've been thinking, what about?" she asked, curious. "What if we went a step further?" he ventured. "What if we had a proper discussion about everything, fears, dreams, even the uncomfortable stuff?" Jessica looked into his eyes, her heart pounding. It was the challenge they needed, a leap into the unknown. Would they be able to confront those deep-seated emotions together? Would this conversation solidify their bond, or fracture it further? As uncertainty loomed, Jessica nodded, gathering the courage to explore a new depth in their relationship. Let us do it. And as they prepared to dive into the conversation that could change everything, the question lingered: were they ready for the truths that awaited them, and would those revelations lead to healing or even more chaos? The soft hum of the washing machine filled the silence as Jessica settled into the couch, her heart racing. Mark's serious tone echoed in her mind, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath in anticipation of what was to come. She wondered what would happen when she finally peeled back the layers they both wore so carefully. "Okay," Mark said, adjusting himself, leaning forward slightly, his eyes probing hers. "What do we want to talk about first?" Jessica took a moment, choosing her words. "I think we should start with our fears. It seems that's what's been weighing us down." Mark nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I feel like my biggest fear is that I'm not enough for you anymore. Not as a husband, not as a father. I see you managing everything so well, and I can't help but think I'm just fading." The weight of his vulnerability sat heavily with Jessica. She felt a mix of sadness and determination, knowing that as much as this was about Mark, it was also about her. "I feel that too, Mark," she admitted. "Sometimes I feel like I'm juggling everything alone." "You're not fading. We just got caught up in survival mode." His gaze softened. "So we're not alone in this? You feel it too?" "Yes," she affirmed, pushing away the disbelief that sometimes crept in. "But I want us to rise above it. I want us to share this weight, not carry it independently." Mark sighed, relief mingling with uncertainty in his eyes. "What else scares you?" he asked gently, probing deeper. "I'm scared of losing you. I'm scared that if we don't make this work, we could end up resenting each other." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken worries and unfulfilled desires. Mark leaned back, resting his hands on his knees, contemplating her words. "You know, that frightens me too. I love you, Jess, and I never want to feel like we're just going through the motions." "Then let us decide to fight for it," Jessica urged, her voice earnest. "We can't let life drown out our love. We have to be proactive." "What about our dreams?" He hesitated, letting her words wash over him. "I used to have so many dreams. I wanted to travel, to explore, but now it feels like those dreams are just distant memories." "If we put our minds to it, we can restart that dream," she encouraged. "We can prioritize what matters most to us. Let us find ways to have adventures, even small ones, while being parents." Mark's eyes glinted with renewed hope. "You're right. Adventure can look different now. It doesn't have to be grand, but just trying new things together could build us back up." She felt a flicker of joy igniting within her. "Exactly. What if we created a family bucket list? Things to do, experiences to share together? It could help us reconnect as a couple and as a family." "That's a great idea," he smiled, the burden on his face slowly lifting. "And each small step can lead us back to the closeness we've missed." As they both opened up about dreams and desires, laughter began to bubble up between them. With each revelation, it felt as though the distance was closing, pieces of their past selves resurfacing. It was cathartic, like carving away at old fears and allowing their love to breathe again. But as they leaned into those moments of hope, the door creaked open just slightly, sparking another flurry of chaos in their minds. Their fears didn't vanish entirely, they still lingered, waiting to be addressed. Time was running out. "Jess," Mark said suddenly, breaking the spell they had spun. "What happens when we face something we don't want to talk about? What if there are truths hidden beneath the surface that we can't bear to uncover?" Jessica felt a chill run down her spine. The question loomed in the air, heavy with anticipation. She could almost sense the storm gathering on the horizon of their conversation, waiting to break against the fragile connection they were rebuilding. "Then we face them together," she whispered, a wave of defiance filling her voice. "No matter what." As they locked eyes, both knowing the path ahead would not be easy, an unspoken agreement formed a promise to confront whatever awaited them, together. Because with real love comes the responsibility to face every truth, no matter how difficult. But within Jessica, a flicker of doubt flickered. Were they truly ready for what lay below, or would the truth they unearthed bury them further? As they held onto each other, the room grew quiet, and a world of uncertainty spilled at their feet, inviting them to dive deeper. The air felt heavier now, thick with unanswered questions as Jessica held Mark's gaze. The moment stretched, and Jessica could hear her heartbeat pulsing in her ears. Were they strong enough to pull back the curtain on their relationship and confront the monsters lurking in the shadows? Her mind raced with all the possibilities, but the need for truth pushed her forward. What if the truth isn't what we hope it is? Mark murmured, a hint of fear lacing his voice. That's possible, Jessica conceded, her heart pounding. But what if it is? What if we discover something we've both been too afraid to acknowledge? Like what? His brow furrowed. What if we realize we have grown apart, or worse, that we want different things? Each word was laced with the weight of her fears, but she refused to hide anymore. Or what if we find out that there's a way back to each other that we hadn't considered? Mark leaned back further, absorbing her words, contemplating the D word. Divorce. It hovered silently between them like a specter, waiting to be acknowledged. Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that they were teetering on a precipice, and one misstep could send them plummeting. But then something shifted, the flicker of determination igniting in both their eyes. I want to know you, Mark said suddenly, breaking the silence as he leaned forward, urgency coating his every word. All of you, even the parts that hurt. Jessica swallowed hard, her throat dry. This wasn't just about the fading dreams or the fear of losing each other. It was about what lay at the root of their disconnect. Okay, she said, an unexpected strength coursing through her. Let's peel back the layers together. He nodded, his expression softening. Let's start with our biggest regret, no judgment. Her mind swirled, thinking back to unsaid words and missed moments. I wish I had told you earlier how overwhelmed I felt when the kids came along. I tried to be strong for both of us, but I just ended up feeling isolated. Mark's eyes darkened with regret. I felt like I had to be the strong one, and I didn't realize you were struggling. I thought I was protecting you, but I just pushed us apart. Jessica felt the walls between them crumbling, brick by brick. Honesty was their hammer, and they were ready to swing. Right now, she began, her voice barely above a whisper, I think we need to take inventory of the little things too. Our laughter, love, and affection. Those light moments that made us feel warm. Mark smiled, a flicker of recognition in his expression. Remember that silly dance in the kitchen last summer? It was ridiculous, but it made us laugh like we hadn't in ages. Exactly. Let's make a list. A joy list, she suggested, grinning at him. What are the things we love about each other? What makes us laugh? Let's bring those feelings back. His eyes sparkled with renewed energy. I love your spirit, Jess. Your ability to roll with the punches, and your passion. And I love how you can light up a whole room with your laughter. A warmth enveloped Jessica, pushing back the doubts. They were rediscovering pieces of each other, and with each shared truth, they were building something better to hold on to. You know, she said, a playful grin creeping onto her face, I also love how you rock a dad joke. Mark laughed, and for a moment, the weight of the world lifted. They were still a little lost, but also found, inching closer to each other with every shared laugh, revealing truths, and letting go of fears. I remember a time when we laughed until we cried, he mused, his eyes softening as nostalgia settled in. Me too, she replied, and it struck her. They were not just facing fears, they were igniting hope. But as they moved closer to the edge of their conversation, something lingered just beneath the surface. Jessica could still feel the pressure building, an unseen tension that ignited a question that needed to be asked. Mark, what if we dig deep and uncover something shocking, something we both dread? What then? Her heart raced as they locked eyes, the shared uncertainty palpable. Were they ready to confront the truths buried beneath their fears? With bated breath, The chance of a breakthrough loomed large between them as they ventured into uncharted territory. Jessica felt her heart racing in her chest. The question hung in the air like a storm cloud, waiting to burst. She could see the vulnerability reflected in Mark's eyes, and it made her feel both terrified and alive. "Maybe we need to face whatever it is together," Mark said, breaking the silence that wrapped around them like a thick fog. "No sugarcoating." She nodded, her mind swirling with possibilities. What would they find? Would they emerge stronger, or would the truth hurt too much? The thought sent shivers down her spine. "Okay," she whispered, her voice steadier than she felt. "What's the worst that could happen?" Mark rubbed his chin, a thoughtful expression settling on his face. "What if we find out we both regret paths we didn't take? What if we've been lying to ourselves about who we've become? Then we own it," Jessica said, surprising herself with the conviction in her voice. "No more hiding." He leaned closer, his intensity pulling her in. "Let's put it all on the table then. What do you really want from us? From your life?" Jessica looked down, the weight of the question pressing on her. Part of her wanted to say the right thing, something that would ease the tension between them. But she remembered their newfound honesty. "I want to feel complete," she said slowly, trying to find clarity. "I want to feel alive again, with you. I don't want to just go through the motions." Mark's jaw tightened. "I want to be with you too, but I fear we've lost that spark." "Have we?" she challenged softly, longing to light that fire. "We've spent so long on the sidelines, Mark. Maybe we've just forgotten how to really live together." His gaze softened, but it was flickered with uncertainty. "Then let's ignite that spark again. Let's rediscover who we started as." So they began to share the weight of those once untold dreams. Jessica spoke about her passion for painting, how the vibrant colors used to fill her with joy but had faded into the background. Mark opened up about his childhood ambitions, the things he had abandoned to fit into the norm of adulthood. Each revelation felt like peeling skin from a wound, raw and exposing yet liberating. They were stepping into uncharted waters, each wave more daunting than the last. "Remember that camping trip we took upstate?" Jessica ventured, her mind drifting to the lovely summer nights spent under a blanket of stars. "We promised we'd always chase adventure together." Mark smiled faintly. "Yeah. We thought we could conquer the world." His voice faded, the weight of reality crashing back in. "What happened to us?" Jessica asked, her heart aching at the memories of laughter replaced by silence. "That's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it?" he replied. "Life got busy. We got busy." "True, but we allowed it to sweep us along," she said. "Maybe we have to decide not to let that happen again." "Okay," he agreed, determination settling over his features. "Let's make a pact. We'll prioritize us. No more distractions. We'll pursue our dreams together." Jessica felt hope blooming. Our joys list might just need to expand. The thought thrilled her, and she could see the shimmer of possibility in his eyes. But just as the warmth enveloped them, an uneasy tension flared and unspoken fear lingered. Jessica sighed, faltering for a moment. "But Mark, what if we find out there are fundamental things we can't ignore? Big differences that we can't bridge?" He swallowed hard, silence stretching again. What lay beneath was darker, a cavernous abyss of questions neither wanted to touch. "What if we find ourselves staring at the end instead of the beginning?" he whispered. Jessica flinched at the thought, fear creeping back. How close were they to losing everything they fought so hard to revive? Would facing the truth bond them or tear them apart? "Maybe we dive in and see," she whispered back, her heart racing. Did they dare to continue down this path of discovery? With her breath held, she waited for his response, knowing they stood on the precipice of change, teetering on what could shape their future fundamentally. Was there a way forward that would not lead to heartbreak? As they locked eyes once more, the electric tension remained, the possibilities lingering tantalizingly just out of reach. What truth awaited them just beyond the surface, ready to transform everything they believed? Would they take the plunge, or would the uncertainty send them reeling back into darkness? Jessica held her breath as she searched Mark's eyes for courage. Time seemed to stretch, each heartbeat echoing louder in the silence between them. "What do we do now?" she finally asked, her vulnerability laid bare. Mark took a deep breath, steadying himself. "We take that leap. We explore the truth no matter how scary it is." His words hung in the air, a promise tethered to uncertainty. The very notion sent a thrill through her. The adventure they had once promised each other suddenly felt tangible again. "Let us start right now," she said, the determination gleaming in her eyes. "Okay," Mark agreed, a hint of excitement creeping into his voice. "Let us begin with what we miss the most about us. What's something small we can do together?" Jessica thought hard, drawing on memories buried beneath years of routine. "We used to love weekend hikes. Just the two of us in nature talking for hours." A smile broke across his face. "The trails by Cedar Lake?" "Yeah. Remember that little spot overlooking the water? We lived for those views." "Let us go," he said, standing up briskly, as if the very suggestion had reignited a spark within him. They didn't waste another moment. Grabbing lightweight jackets and water bottles, they headed out into the cool evening air. As they walked side by side, a familiar warmth began to wrap around them. The anxiety from their earlier conversation melted away with each step. The drive felt electric. The radio played softly in the background, their fingers occasionally brushing against each other. Every fleeting touch silenced the doubts whispering in her mind. Maybe they could find their way back after all. Once at the trailhead, Jessica breathed deeply, taking in the scent of pine and crisp earth. It felt like a world away from the jumbled chaos of their lives. "This is it," she said, smiling at Mark. "Just us and the wild." They set off, the path winding amidst towering trees. As they walked, Jessica spoke about how the trail had drawn them to each other years ago, the first time they hiked together, laughing and falling in step as if they had known each other forever. "Do you remember that time I tripped over a root?" Mark chuckled. "You laughed so hard, I thought you'd rolled down the hill. I thought you were going to twist your ankle." She teased back, warmth spreading through her as her laughter echoed in the air. As they reached the overlook, Jessica leaned against the railing, gazing out at the shimmering lake below. The fading sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, a breathtaking contrast to their dark worries. This is perfect," she breathed, her heart feeling lighter. "I miss moments like this." Mark stepped closer, his shoulder brushing against hers. "I did too. We can recreate this every month, even. A date night in nature." She nodded eagerly. "Let us make a list. Each month, we dedicate one night to an adventure." "Agreed. But let us promise to be honest about how we feel during those times. No holding back," he said, his voice low and serious. The sights, the sounds, the entire atmosphere shifted as Jessica turned to look at him. "Okay. Honestly, though? I want more than just hikes. I want to feel that passion we had." He lowered his eyes, the weight of her words hanging between them. "I want that too. But fighting off everything we buried, it's daunting. Can we start slow? You know, one small step at a time?" The shyness in her voice didn't mask her resolve. Mark reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers gently. "Together, then? No running away." She felt warmth shoot through her at his touch, but the immediacy of their discussion loomed like an approaching storm. "But Mark, what if we don't like what we uncover over time?" He paused, contemplating her question, his brow furrowed with thought. "Then we adapt together. It's what we've always done, right? It's not too late for us." Sitting on the railing, her heart pounded amidst the sweeping panorama of their transformed landscapes. She wanted to believe him, wanted desperately to hold on to hope. The horizon darkened as night descended, bringing with it a blanket of stars and a creeping sense of the unknown. They remained quiet, lost in thought, as if the universe was urging them to discover each other anew. Mark's fingers tightened around hers. "Whatever happens, Jessica, I want to face it with you. I don't want to lose this spark we're starting to feel again." She nodded, the promise resonating as they exchanged a glance fueled by unspoken fears and possibilities. But deep down, Jessica wondered, was it really possible to navigate through the shadows of their past? Had they ignited a flame destined to burn brighter, or would they soon find it flickering out again before they truly grasped what it meant to love one another? As they stood together, the stars twinkling above like jewels in the night sky, Jessica felt the raw edges of her heart once again. What would tomorrow bring, after all this? The morning light filtered through the kitchen window, casting a golden glow over the remnants of their late-night discussion. Jessica stirred her coffee, staring out at the world awakening outside. She felt a flicker of hope deep within her, a belief that perhaps they could conquer the odds stacked against them. Mark shuffled in, his hair tousled and eyes still heavy with sleep. Their gazes met, and for a moment, it felt like the weeks of silence and tension dissolved. "Morning," he murmured, a small smile breaking through his morning fog. "Hey there, sleephead," she replied, her heart warming at his presence. As he reached for the coffee pot, she caught a glimpse of the man she had fallen in love with, determined, albeit a little frightened, but willing to try. They shared breakfast, laughter bubbling over as they reminisced about the kids' crazy antics from the last few days. With each shared story, Jessica felt the walls that had been keeping them apart starting to crumble. Daily routines were filling with life again, and she couldn't help but feel they were growing closer. After breakfast, a call came in from Emma's school. Jessica answered, and as she shared the news about the upcoming family project, a spring fair showcasing local crafts ideas began swirling in her mind. "Mark," she said, excitement bubbling over as she hung up. "What if we all worked together? We could create something as a family." Mark nodded, curiosity piqued as he set down his coffee cup. "Like what?" "Maybe a group art piece, showcasing the community's spirit," she proposed, her mind racing. "It could bring everyone together, just like we've been working on with those initiatives." He leaned back, crossing his arms, and she could see the wheels turning in his head. "That's brilliant! It'll get us out of our heads and into something creatively fulfilling," he exclaimed, and suddenly, they were back, that spark igniting once again. It felt like a fresh start, not just for their family but for them as partners. As the days sped by, the project blossomed. Jessica and Mark worked alongside Emma and Jake, showing them how to paint, letting them experiment with colors on canvas. They brushed away the dust of past grievances, replacing it with laughter and joy. Every paint splatter felt like a new opportunity, a chance to rebuild. However, during a particularly hectic paint session, Mark knocked over a jar of bright blue paint. It splashed across the canvas they were working on, ruining their planned design. Jessica's heart raced, memories of silent tension surfacing. This could easily lead to a fight, the kind that had divided them before. But Mark just stared at the mess, a slow grin sidling across his face. "Well, I guess that's a happy accident," he laughed, and Jessica felt relief wash over her. "What if we just embrace it, and see what we can create from the chaos?" With that attitude shift, the mood lightened, and what could have been a disaster turned into an artistic triumph. They all grabbed brushes, layering the blue paint into their design, incorporating it into something unexpected yet stunning. As they stood back to admire their work, Jessica felt a swell of gratitude. They had created something worth cherishing together, something that mirrored their journey, imperfect, but filled with love. The project came alive, each stroke telling their unique story. On the day of the spring fair, the community center buzzed with excitement. Families gathered, kids running around with ice cream cones, laughter permeating the air like a warm hug. Jessica felt alive, surrounded by the familiar faces of friends and neighbors who had embraced them through the tough times. Their finished piece stood proudly at the entrance, painted with light and love, a vibrant representation of their obstacles transformed into beauty. People complimented it, and shared their own stories tied into the colors splattered on the canvas. Mark's hand lingered near Jessica's, a gentle pressure filled with promise. Later that day, as the sun set behind the horizon, Jessica and Mark watched their children dance and play with the other kids. The blissful sound of their laughter was music to her ears, and she squeezed Mark's hand. "We did this, you know. We found our way." He nodded, a glimmer of pride glinting in his eyes. "Yeah, and look at us. Together. In that moment, she saw the change in him. The man who was once consumed by ambition now stood grounded in their reality. They'd face fears, embrace truth, and come out on the other side stronger. And as she leaned in to whisper how proud she was of him, both their hearts fluttered with unspoken hope. The shadows that had lingered before now felt like distant memories. They had chosen each other, each moment of resilience propelling them forward, vowing never to slip back into silence again. Jessica realized that love was an ongoing journey, one they were committed to driving together. A promise that from here on out, they would continue to chase adventure, face fears, and paint their life anew, side by side. As the deep blue night wrapped around them, they were reminded that every sunrise brings the chance to start over, the chance to keep creating a beautiful life for themselves and their children. And in that certainty lay their strength, their unwavering support for one another, ready to embrace whatever came next. This was not just a moment of transformation. It was the beginning of their beautiful story woven into the fabric of family and community, radiating with the warmth of hope and love. Now, it's your turn to carry this momentum forward. If you feel inspired by Jessica and Mark's journey, then you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and inspire more stories just like this one. Don't hold back, comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Become a part of our growing community, and keep the spark alive.